They threatened to revoke my residency, also based on my reporting, and that's how they trapped me. They actually lured me to the Immigration Bureau, right? And I'd never been summoned there in my life, so I knew something was up. And then they basically like really explicitly threatened me, like, you know, we can revoke your residency because of these videos that you've done. And then I was like, no comment. And then as soon as I thought the meeting was done, they printed out like a copy for me to sign. These agents like walked in and they served me with a warrant. So it's all set up.
So that's all extremely scary. Now, you actually have a timeline that you put together, right? Because you think that there was coordination between Israel and the UK. You want to show this timeline? We have it. We have your tweet. Let's take a look at it and you can kind of expand on it. So that's the tweet. Richard writes, a timeline of arrests that I put together. British journalists and activists critical of Israel arrested, raided, or detained under counterterrorism laws. When? In the weeks and months surrounding collusion between the British state and Israeli embassy. So let's take a look at these people and then you can talk us through more about this collusion.
Just to preface, this is not my Freedom of Information Act request. It wasn't my FOIA, but someone made a FOIA and obtained an email between the Attorney General's office and the Israeli embassy. Now, just to be clear, why do we care about the Attorney General? Because whenever there's something really like heavy, like a terrorism charge, the Attorney General is the one that rubber stamps it or stamps it, right? They have the final say. So like right now, if I'm charged with terrorism, the Crown Prosecution Service will recommend that I'm charged and the Attorney General will stamp it. Okay, so that's why it's significant. And that email was completely redacted and blacked out. There's not a word you can read in it, but you can see the subject. And the subject says CPS, so that's Crown Prosecution Service, /SO15, that's the counterterrorism unit, contacts. And it's addressed to the Israeli embassy. And it's sent like 3 weeks after they arrested me. And it's a follow-up to a meeting that they had 2 weeks after they arrested me, okay? And it's not just me, right? Like, if it was just to do with me, you couldn't really, like, you know, guess or have a fair guess about what's going on here. But because of the timeline that you brought up, there are all of these arrests, like this entire crackdown that started to unfold. I think it's really, really shady. So, like, the day before they arrested me, they charged Richard Barnard, who's a co-founder of Palestine Action. They charged him under the Terrorism Act, Section 12(1)(a). That's the same thing that they nicked me under. And then you can see Filton 10. Filton is just a factory that these actionists went and sabotaged, but they're still part of Palestine Action, right? And we know for a fact, I can tell you for a fact, that the Israeli embassy and the British government have colluded in the past against Palestine Action, okay? So that we know about that for sure. So that's why it's like in the shadow of that we're guessing that they were meeting about us. And then you can, if you bring up the timeline, you'll see they arrested me on August 15th, yeah, and then afterwards, I think Sarah Wilkinson was next. She was like done 2 weeks later. Yeah, exactly. And then after Sarah Wilkinson, they did Asa Winstanley. They raided his stuff. Although I think just today they gave him back his devices.
Yes,
so
yeah,
that's good news.
Asa. Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
Yeah, and then you can see Haim Bresheeth is there as well.
Yeah.
So he was arrested. I think he might have been charged, although you'll don't quote me on that because I'm not sure. I know Natalie Strecker was definitely charged. They arrested her and then charged her a few months or weeks afterwards. And then you can see these are another 8 Filton actionists. So they're called the Filton 18, these 18 Palestine Action activists. And by the way, the prisons that they've been sent to are absolutely horrific, like Wandsworth, for example. Yeah. And there's Tony Greenstein. So he was raided almost a year before in December 2023, and there they charged him. I mean, just, you know, look at the dates. This is all happening within, you know, like every 2 weeks, basically, there's something else. Someone's being raided, someone's being charged, someone's being arrested. It's so suspect. And, you know, when the Israeli embassy are talking to the Crown Prosecution Service, this is very, very bizarre for several reasons, because you know, the Crown Prosecution Service is meant to be an independent body, right? Not just independent of foreign governments, but even of the British government. They're supposed to make charging decisions based on, you know, a test of the law and whether it's in the public's interest. It's purely supposed to be like a holistic institution. So it makes you wonder, why on earth are the Israelis contacting them directly? And why are they contacting the counterterrorism unit? They're not just contacting the police. No, it's specifically that unit, which has arrested me, which has charged and arrested all these people that are on this timeline. Is all under the same law, under the Terrorism Act. So, it's not a smoking gun, that email, but sort of, sort of. The subject says enough. And I'll just add another thing. The Attorney General, Richard Hermer, has family members in the IDF.
Wow.
And he took a trip to Israel, because I went through those emails between the embassy and his office, and there's a mention of a trip to Israel. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean anything, but if you put it together with the other pieces of information that I mentioned, it starts to paint a picture that this is perhaps not the most neutral.
Wow. And what's next for you?
Well, I think this is their end game. Well, I don't know. I mean, like, in the best of cases, they want to keep me in limbo like the rest of my life, so I can't work. And in the worst case, they're just going to throw me in prison. These are very serious potential charges. I mean, that 12(1)(a), I think, is 14 years in prison maximum, and that's if it's just one charge. And then if you look at the stuff in Austria, it could be 10 years or more. I have no idea. They're accusing me of things like being a member of organized crime, like I'm Al Capone or something during Prohibition. It's really wild. And I think the aim of that is to throw as much stuff at someone in the hopes that something sticks. Although I don't know how it could work, but it's quite overwhelming. Like, they've really put a target on my back, I think, perhaps more than anyone else. They accused me of terrorism for just sitting in a room and doing journalism. But anyway, I expected them to abuse this legislation against me at some point, and I'd seen them doing it against Craig Murray and Kit Clarenberg and others. And they really escalated it, because they had detained everyone else. And for me, they went straight for an arrest. I'm the first journalist that's ever been arrested under this provision. And no one's been arrested under it since. They've kept me under investigation, and some lawyers have told me that that's probably their strategy, is to basically paralyze me, because, as I said, the law is so broad, it's like you can't work anymore. And they've extended that 3 times. It's all because of my work. It's literally nothing else at all. It's purely because of my videos, because of my work, because of things that I've said doing my job as a journalist, nothing else. And that should really scare people.
Yeah, it really should. And, a lot of people, I think, kind of take false comfort in the idea that, oh, well, Richard Medhurst has ideas that I don't agree with, so I shouldn't care, or therefore they're not going to go after me. But, that's not really a principled position, first of all, but it's also not how the world works. So if you care about self-interest, you should care about this. But obviously, the principled stance is to oppose this. But also, that's how these things work, is that people think it won't affect them. And so they don't have to speak out against it.